very much. May I stand on existing protocols to say I'm grateful for the opportunity to introduce the speaker for the occasion. But before that, let me just say that we are in the very heart of the country, the very center of this beautiful nation. Even as we sang the national anthem, I felt this a place where the change and the transformation that is ahead of us must be done. And we are happy to be here to honor this very important invitation. The topic we are about to listen to is one that is very important for our country, because as you know, from 1982 to today, we are a nation that have been known to have started a journey that the rest of Africa has admired and has applauded. Unfortunately, over the last 8 years thereabouts, the beautiful journey we have been on has turned into a journey of darkness, where the freedom, the democracy of our country virtually is being threatened and being jeopardized. As Nana spoke, what the heart of what I listened was, why should a beautiful nation be reduced to a time where leaders do not have the ability to tell the truth? You cannot build a nation on deception, you cannot build a nation on lies. And what we have seen over the last 8 years has not just been a lot of suffering, but what makes it worse is they have added thoughts to our injury and our suffering. When there is do so, they say there is no do so. When there is debt crisis, they say there is no debt crisis. When there is economic crisis, they say no, there is no crisis. And I think the speaker for today will take his time to explain to you the fact that good ideas are important, but above all, democracy and freedom must be built on leaders who have principles. And that is what it is that this leader who is about to speak embodies. A man who believes that truth must be spoken, even if speaking that truth sometimes can cost you votes. He has the ability to tell the truth. That's why in 2016, when even everybody thought that was the end of him and his party, he said, posterity will judge. And less than 8 years after, posterity truly has started judging. And on December 7, posterity will speak for him, so that this country will know once and for all that truth is the bedrock on which all transformation will happen. It's my privilege today to introduce to you a servant, a man who loves his country, a man who started in the tradition, the founder of this country, a man who grew up and later served one of the best leaders in our country, Jerry John Rawlings, and a man who became elevated to become the vice president under one of the best leaders we have, Professor Acknowledgements, a man who also happened to be a very close friend to a president who has actually contributed his quota. I'm talking about President John who happens to come from this wonderful region. It's a man with great experience, a man who loves his country, a man who still has a lot to do for his country. It's unfortunate that the 4 years in power, almost everything has been reversed. But there is a time and a purpose, and I think his time is coming again so that he can finish the job that he started, which has not yet been completed. It's my privilege and my honor to introduce you
down. acknowledge our chairman, Professor Edward Brenya, of the Department of and thank him very much for accepting to chair this event. I also want to acknowledge University, Professor Sam Afrani, and to thank him for the kind invitation he has given us to use this university as a platform to share our views and experiences, not only with the students here, but with the whole of the country that will be listening to this lecture. I also want to express a special appreciation to the special guest of honor, who is a very honorable royal of the Ashanti Kingdom, my friend and brother, Nanaba Fosraman II, the chief of Bremen in Ashanti. And I want to thank all of them for the words they spoke to open this event. Everybody else is a distinguished invited guest, and we appreciate that all of you have taken time off to be here with us this afternoon. The university invited me to speak on the topic sustainability of democracy in Africa, the Ghanaian experience. It means we're talking about Africa and how democracy can be sustained, but then narrowing down to our own country, Ghana. And so it gives me great pleasure to be here with you today for the first time in the Christian Service University, and to have the opportunity to deliver this address as part of your 50th anniversary celebration. I wish to congratulate this institution for attaining this milestone and acknowledge the significant contribution that you have made over the years to academic advancement, not only in this region but the nation at large, the knowledge sharing and the provision of quality human resource that you continue to produce for our nation's benefit. This program with its theme demonstrates your commitment to stimulating important discussion that can influence thinking in governance and nation building. And I'm delighted to have the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you on this subject. I firmly believe that democracy is the surest path to sustain progress and development for Africa, and particularly our country, Ghana. And this belief has driven me into my active involvement in democratic pursuits and governance in various capacities for over 3 decades, from the grassroots to the highest office of the land. In 6 months, we'll go to the polls for the 8th consecutive time to elect a president and 276 members of parliament. This will mark 32 years since the first election was held under the 4th Republic. And this is the longest sustained period of democratic governance in our nation's history. Late last year, over 6,200 assemblymen and women, and even more unit committee members were elected across the country to help local level governance. For many of our younger compatriots, democratic governance in Ghana seems routine, and we seem to take it for granted because you were born into democracy. But those of us who have been around for a while know that it has not always been the same. Ghana's transition to democracy did not come easy. Nearly a third of our 67 years as an independent nation has been spent under military dictatorships. These military governments often came to power on the pretext that democratic governance had failed to yield the desired outcomes, and they were often met with significant support from sections of the population who were tired of the corruption and poor governance of democratic governments. Some military governments made strides towards improving the country's fortunes, but overall, our experience under military regimes were clearly unpleasant. We have learned that democracy is a better system of government than unconstitutional and military rule. And yet, amid the current excruciating economic crisis, there have been troubling memories and sometimes loud expressions of a desire by a frustrated section of our citizens for a return to military rule. That some citizens, especially young people, long for the military era is concerning, but it's not surprising. Such calls, especially after all the gains made in entrenching democratic culture, call for a re-evaluation of what has gone wrong. An honest introspection reveals that many feel that they have not benefited from or partaken in the democratic dividend. They do not see that democratic governance has met their aspirations and their expectations, nor do they feel that they are properly represented in decision making. Our embrace of democracy in Ghana is strong within a sub-region that is prone to volatility and conflict. In recent years, the democratic consolidation in Africa has suffered setbacks, with a disturbing relapse into the era of coup d'etats. Military strongmen have assumed government reins in Chad, in Sudan, in Gabon, in Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and many of them with strong public support. Africa's entanglement with military rule dates back to the immediate post-colonial era of the late 50s and the 60s. Since then, there have been about 200 coup d'etats on the continent. But by the mid-80s to 1990s, many African countries had begun to shift back towards democratic governance after military rule had often worsened the circumstances they were supposed to correct. Incremental governance and economic reforms were yielding dividends, and many African economies started to make modest gains and improvements in quality of life with the return to democratic governance. This was certainly the case in Ghana. After the economic depression of the mid-70s through the mid-80s, sweeping economic reforms catalyzed by various IMF and World Bank-backed programs turned our economic fortunes around. We rose from economic depression, -0 growth, hyperinflation, shortage of basic commodities, and a free-falling currency to achieve consistent economic growth and lift millions out of poverty. By the time democratic governance was fully restored in 1992 in Ghana, we have come to expect the continuation and furtherance of these gains that had been made under the revolution. Over the last 30 years, as a democratic country, there have been periods of strong economic performance, with some of the highest growth rates in the world. Indeed, one of the highest was 14.7% under the late President John Evans Atamils of blessed memory. However, this democratic transition may have lulled us into a false sense of security and accomplishment. Leading us to take our eyes off the ball. Economic mismanagement, corruption, and a host of other governance issues have returned, diminishing the hopes that many citizens have in government and state institutions. We have a unique situation with a very young population, unlike before when education was scant and rare. Today, millions of our young people have acquired education and are looking forward to opportunities for jobs and personal advancement. The 2021 Population and Housing Census revealed that a staggering 33% of Ghanaians between the ages of 15 and 24 are without jobs. The unemployment situation has worsened as several multinational companies have decided to relocate in our country. Ghanaian businesses are also collapsing as their operations are becoming unsustainable, buffeted by rapidly depreciating currency and high taxes and tariffs. Millions of educated young people without jobs or a source of livelihood represent a ticking time bomb for this nation. Such young people are likely to embrace any event that seems to liberate them from their current predicament. A restless youthful population deprived of opportunities always offers a spark for instability and other forms of disruption to thrive, especially during times of economic crisis brought on by years of mismanagement and institutionalized corruption. The terrible economic situation has resulted in tremendous suffering for Ghanaians on a scale never witnessed before in our recent history. In November 2023, Ghana was ranked by the World Bank as one of the top 5 countries in the world with the highest food inflation. This situation has made food too expensive for many to afford. A recent Ghana Statistical Service publication revealed that up to 8.4 million Ghanaians, representing a quarter of our population, have gone for one day without food. This economic downturn has had a cascading impact on almost every aspect of our national life, with education, health, energy, and other sectors steeped in deep crisis. For instance, in the energy sector, despite our best efforts to revitalize the sector by ramping up generation capacity and setting up the Energy Sector Levy Act, nearly $2 billion is still owed to the various energy companies. And this has resulted in a return to what is popularly known as doomsday. And this is due to government's inability to buy the fuel for electricity generation. Unspeakable corruption, nepotism, brazen theft, waste of natural resources, impunity, and general criminality have become the hallmarks of Ghana's current government. There is widespread despair and anguish amongst our people, leading to an active debate that I have followed recently on our social media about whether securing a foreign passport to do menial jobs in Europe is better than holding a PhD in Ghana. It is a reflection of the adversity into which our nation has been plunged. Otherwise, there is no basis of comparison between a visa and a PhD. A PhD is about learning and education. A visa is an opportunity to travel and reside somewhere. But you forget that where you are residing, there are people with PhDs too. And the comparison is not between their PhDs and the fact that you are residing in their country. Learning and education is the most important resource a human being can acquire. And if you had a PhD and you had an opportunity to travel, you'll be a more high-value citizen in that country that you have gone to. And so there's no basis. It's like comparing apples and what fruit should I use? Normally they use oranges. Like apples and aluguntubi. And so that debate should not be taking place at all. It's taking place because of the crisis into which this government has plunged our country. And in the debate, I note that an overwhelming majority have opted for obtaining passports and a visa to travel. And this signals a complete loss of confidence and hope in the future of our country. What this teaches us is that a democracy that does not lead to qualitative improvements in the lives of the people holds no meaning for them. With the national spirit sinking to an all-time low and hopelessness engulfing our country, a change in governance and direction has become absolutely imperative. Therefore, I've decided to run for office as president in this election. I believe that my experience and disposition are needed at this moment of crisis to provide the kind of leadership that can address the myriad challenges we are facing as a nation. I'm keenly aware of the weight of expectation that will rest on the shoulders of the next government, given the dire economic situation in which we find ourselves. Real work must go into winning back the trust of our people, to winning back their trust in democratic governance and its structures. In my campaign for the presidency this year, I focused on communicating well-considered policy options to restore strength to our economy and create jobs for our restless youth. Among these proposals are the 24-hour economic policy, which aims to use an incentives-based approach to catalyze round-the-clock economic activity for expansion and job creation. And for those who say they don't understand it, however much you explain, they say we don't understand. Assume that this university was operating only from 8 o'clock to 5 in the evening. How many students will be able to study here? Today, this university has about 2,000 students. Because while some are closing from the day lectures, others are coming in the evening and studying. And so it allows them to take on more students than the capacity of this university otherwise would have taken if they were running only a day semester. It makes it simple to understand. If you have one factory, it can produce only a certain amount of products from 8 o'clock to 5. And it can employ only a certain amount of people. If you want to use the same capacity to employ more and produce more, then once shift closes, another shift comes in and continues working. I don't know what is so difficult to understand about this. And we're saying that we will give them the incentives to do it. It's going to be the private sector. You have a factory and you want to run the 24-hour economy, you want to sign on to the 24-hour economy, we will give you incentives to be able to do so. If you need credit, we will assist you with credit. If you need tax breaks, we will assist you with tax breaks. We will provide you with security so that you can work without fear of being attacked. We will provide transport services so that people can get to work at any time of the day. For all those who have traveled, you see 24-hour economy at work in all the countries that you go to. Those countries never sleep. They are working day and night. And we're saying that with the crisis that we're confronted with in Ghana, if we continue a single ship system, it's going to take us decades to turn this economy around. And so we need to run faster. And the only way we can run faster is to add on to our productivity. And we can only add on to our productivity if we work day and night. The 1 million coders program is aimed at creating additional digital jobs for our young people. Why has India become the software capital of the world? If you go to Bangalore, there are young people writing programs for the whole world, in banking, in agriculture, in every sector of the economy. We can do the same if we train our young people to be able to do it. And so the 1 million coders program will be aimed at creating additional digital jobs for our youth. And we intend to spend $3 billion investments in information and communication technologies. Sound and prudent economic management founded on broad and far-reaching governance and economic reform will take root in Ghana under the new leadership of the NDC. My number one priority will be to stabilize the economy and halt the deterioration in the value of the cedi against other currencies. Our economic policy will be geared towards sustainable growth with an equitable distribution of the proceeds of growth amongst our citizens. The basic structure of our economy, reliant on raw material exports with little or no value addition, is no longer tenable. Significant growth and wealth creation cannot be realized from this, and we will not be able to provide for the needs of our people if we continue like that. We will work to restore our traditional export sector back to their past glory. Incentives for cocoa farmers to increase exports and turn the sector around to take advantage of the improved world market prices would also be a priority for us. Today, the cocoa sector has collapsed. We are barely producing 500,000 tons. In our time, we produce almost 1 million tons, double what we're producing today. And so we'll give incentives to the farmers to be able to look after their farms and increase their production. We will also increase production in our oil and gas sector. The last 8 years have been wasted years. Not one single oil well has been brought on stream. When we came into office, there was only one oil well, the Jubilee field. During the 4 years of my presidency, we went and brought 2 more oil fields, the 10th field and Dissect. We brought 2 new oil wells on stream. And so we handed over 3 new producing wells, 1 old well and 3 new producing wells to the MPP administration. They have not added a single one in 8 years. And we all know that this is a transition period for oil and gas, because the world is going into green energy. So every country that has oil and gas is pumping it like there's no tomorrow. And yet we have wasted 8 years. If we're not careful and we don't bring these producers back on stream and take advantage of our oil and gas sector, the world will make the transition and our gas and oil will become what they call stranded assets. And so we're going to work to bring the operators back. E&I have run away to Côte d'Ivoire because this government harassed them until they had to leave. We're going to bring all of them back and get them to work as fast as possible so that we can take advantage of the resource that God granted us. We will seek to take greater control of our natural resources and move towards processing such resources, while attracting investments into areas such as farming, industry, agribusiness, tourism, and the rapidly growing digital sector. There will be promotion of new value-added export items such as oil palm, salt, cotton, soya, textiles, ginger, cashew, cassava products such as ethanol and starch. This will increase our export potential and bring in more foreign exchange so that it can lead to a stable currency. Corruption and the abuse of office to the detriment of citizens will not be tolerated. I will not be a clearing agent. The anti-corruption institutions will work without political interference. Persons who have involved themselves in looting the resources of the state should expect to be prosecuted and imprisoned. There will be greater transparency and accountability in the way that government operates. Our citizens, especially the youth, will feel a sense of ownership of governance and their voices will matter. Institutional reforms will be a focus on strengthening governance systems that deliver desired outcomes. We will curtail the excessive politicization of institutions such as the judiciary, the Electoral Commission, and other independent constitutional bodies through major constitutional reforms. We will also rein in the phenomenon of bloated government and replace it with a much leaner one. We will not have 125 ministers, we will have not more than 60 ministers. Attendant governance costs like payments of utility bills, fuel, and ex-gratia payments will be cancelled. The Big Push program will channel investments into a priority investments program, PIP, to cover infrastructure projects in the area of roads, bridges, dams, railways, aviation sector, telecommunications, manufacturing, healthcare, education, power, tourism, water and sanitation, agriculture, and agribusiness. We expect that this will involve investments of about 150 billion Ghana cedis over a 5-year period in priority infrastructural projects to boost economic growth and prosperity. We cannot have a true democracy without equitable treatment of all our citizens. All our people must be treated equally, irrespective of their ethnic, religious, or partisan affiliation. The President will live up to his oath of office of doing justice to all manner of persons. We cannot sustain our democracy without a healthy and conducive environment. I will ban all mining in forest reserves. Because I believe that many of those trees in the forest reserves that are more than 500 to 700 years old are more precious assets than any mineral wealth that lie underneath them. We will promote responsible mining and make sure our water bodies become clean again. We intend to make Ghana a hub for education. When I was president, a lot of foreign students used to come from other West African countries to seek higher education here in Ghana. Unfortunately, that has changed. We will work to make that happen again. And I believe that this is one of the benefits private universities like Christian Service University can take advantage of. Because when foreign students come, they will pay you in dollars, and Vice Chancellor Rami has a lot of use for that kind of money. And so we'll make Ghana an educational hub and attractive so that foreign students will come from other countries. We'll continue our policy of making Ghana a health hub so that other persons in Africa seeking medical treatment will find Ghana the preferred location. This was the reason for promoting the construction of the Bank Hospital, the International Maritime Hospital, the University of Ghana Medical Center, and all the other hospitals that we built. It was to attract our neighbors who have medical issues to come and seek treatment here instead of traveling to Europe and other places. And so we'll continue that program. We will make Ghana a tourism hub by developing our tourism sites. We'll create amusement parks, water parks, enhance all our waterfalls and other tourist attractions so that people will come and enjoy taking a holiday here in Ghana rather than going to other destinations. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not different from other countries in terms of our potential for growth and prosperity. Bad governance, poor leadership, and a string of historical factors have limited our potential. But a new dawn is on the horizon, one in which the very best of us, the very best in all of us, will shine through, in which we put out our very best foot forward. My track record of delivery is self-evident and will no doubt be considered by voters in the election to come. Ability and performance are vital prerequisites for leadership, especially in times of multiple crises as we are facing now. But more importantly, respect for the citizen, honesty and candor, decency and character must count for something. The upcoming elections will be the most crucial for Ghana in living memory. These elections could make or break us. It is a make and break for our country. They can determine the difference between continuing the unsustainable path of poor governance, which will surely lead us to fall off the cliff, or alternatively, charting a new path towards restoring the soul of our nation and reviving the hope and confidence of the Ghanaian spirit. The leadership of Ghana and the office of President are weighty and must be approached with the utmost seriousness. Ghanaians are in dire straits. And this is not the time for comedy. This is not the time. Ghanaians are in dire straits, and this is not the time for comedy. This is not the time for a concert party about passing and making house. There is no space for stale falsehoods and gaslighting. Those trivializing the suffering and pain of Ghanaians and reducing important matters of governance to empty slogans and desperate promises cannot come near the leadership of this country. Those whose glaring failures at economic management have sucked us into this vortex of despair, despite their lofty talk in opposition, and who now seek to flee from responsibility, cannot be rewarded with the presidency of a nation in such deep crisis. And it is unimaginable to think that those who claim, that some claim, that it's better to have an economy that has defaulted on debt, causing over 1 million bondholders, including elderly pensioners, to suffer financial haircuts, still would try to convince Ghanaians that they are in a much better position than one in which debt servicing was done timeously, without default, and when nobody suffered any financial loss. The presidency cannot be handed over to those who present themselves as the future, when they have been the epicenter of our disastrous present. The presidency cannot be handed over to those who present themselves as the future, when they have been the epicenter of our disastrous present. The narrative by some people that they have championed everything under this government, and at the same time are not responsible for anything under the same government because they were self-styled driver's mate. It's simply not tenable, and it's an insult to the intelligence of the electorate. In one breath, they champion everything under this government. In the next breath, they are not responsible for anything that happened under this government because they were a driver's mate. This is an insult to the intelligence of the government. In the end, sustainability of democracy anywhere in the world, including Africa and also in Ghana, boils down to one word: leadership. Leadership that is honest and accepts responsibility for challenges rather than passing the buck is the kind of leadership that sustains democracies. One that is not enamored of sophistry and sloganeering. One that levels with the people and carries them along on the arduous task of resetting our country is the kind of leadership we need for a sustainable democracy. We may have this last opportunity to restore the faith of our people in the fact that democracy can work for them. We are sitting on the powder keg of youth, resentment and frustration and despair. And we cannot afford this to miss this opportunity to change the wrong trajectory on which this nation is currently on. On my part, I have the utmost faith and belief in the Ghanaian people to make the right choices at the polls that are coming in December, to signal the beginning of a new dawn where we can make a clean break with the undesirable governance of the last 8 years. It is then and only then that we can begin to reap the true dividends of democracy and regain the trust of our people in our democracy's viability and work. This is the only way to sustain Ghana's democracy. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Stiano there, farm out.